So first I'm just gonna ask if everyone can make sure that they're muted, just so everyone's able to listen to our speakers today. Okay, looks like a few more people just joined us. So all I was saying is if you could just make sure you're muted, we really appreciate it. First we're going to hear from Caleb for Ironroot distance, and then we will hear from Priscilla. They already have some questions that you guys submitted through the form that we can go through first. And then I think at the end, maybe we'll try and save some time for if there are any additional questions. All right. And oh, we got a few more people coming in. Okay. So for those who just joined us, we're going to get started. First, we're going to hear from Caleb, and then we're going to hear from Priscilla. And then we'll be saving questions for that. And yeah, we just asked that if you can make sure you guys are muted during the meeting. It looks like everyone is, so I will go ahead.
If you have any questions during, you can always go in the chat. Delaney and I will monitor the chat and answer it. And then when I start talking, Caleb will do the same. So if you have anything pressing and you don't want to ask it, just put it in the chat and we'll answer it as we go.
All right, you guys ready for me? Mm-hmm. So I just took over presenting from you, Delaney. Hey, everybody. Caleb Masland with Ironroot Distance. If you've done previous Trivium races that we did the training plans for, the old business name was TWB Running. We did a rebrand at the beginning of this year. So same guy as previous races and training plans, but new name. So if this is your first time doing one of these races where we provide training plans, what we wanted to do was sort of set everybody up for a really good training cycle today. So our training plans just started this week. I'll talk a little bit about them in just a minute. And we're about 20 weeks out from race day. So the idea is to kind of cover some general training principles on this call. And then right around when it's time to start tapering for the race, we will have another virtual clinic and we'll talk about the best ways to taper, prepare for the race, handle race week, and things like that. If you do have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. I have that open as I'm presenting, and I usually will just pick those up and answer them as we go. Any questions that were submitted ahead of time, I worked into this presentation, and then I also have some sort of general questions that we tend to always get for this race, because this is the fourth or fifth year that we've done training plans.
I guess we've been together the whole time, Caleb. I think we came on together.
I know. I still haven't met in person. I probably should actually go to the race. Even I have no excuse because it's like 2 hours from my doorstep. But anyway,
you shouldn't have admitted that. That was bad.
So without further ado, I'll sort of get into my content. Also, if you want to ask a question and you don't feel like piping up, feel free to just use the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, and you'll see, and I'll see that and call on you. So a little bit about Ironroot Distance. As I mentioned, we've been doing training plans for Trivium races for several years. I work with 4 other coaches on staff, and all of us have athletes spread all over the place. Most of the work we do is working with one-on-one athletes full-time, but we also do lots in terms of training plans and clinics and camps and stuff like that. I won't try to give you too much of a marketing pitch about the company, but I do want to say if you ever have a question, whether or not you're using one of our training plans, please feel free to reach out. Our general email is on the screen there, contact@ironrootdistance.com, or you can just check out our website and there's a form, and one of us will get right back to you. If it's anything about training for ultras, I'll probably be the one to follow up with you. But if you're ever interested in things in the future on road racing or track racing or anything like that, we have folks who specialize in those areas as well. So as I mentioned, this is basically week 1 of the training plans for Pilot Mountain to Hanging Rock, and they're 20 weeks in length. So they started on Monday, running through race day, and we have 4 training plans for the individual distances. So a beginner and an advanced version of a 50K and a 50-mile plan. The beginner plans, if you're thinking about getting one, are kind of more for people training for this distance for the first time, or if you just are doing the race to have fun, finish, and feel good doing it. Our advanced plans have a little bit more running in general, like an extra day or 2 of running per week compared to the easy plans, depending on your race distance. And they have a little bit more intensity built in so that you could train more for, a PR at the distance. If this is, a distance that you've done before, or you're a really experienced runner and you want to train a little bit harder. So for the 50K, the plan's built to about 25 miles for the longest long run, a couple miles more for the advanced version, and then 30 to 32 miles is the longest long run on the 50-mile plans. And we built them so they integrate with major GPS watches like Garmin's, Coros, things like that. So if you want a structured plan, this is a really good way to have something that just goes right to your watch and can kind of tell you what to do on a daily basis. They're inexpensive and they're available through the you can get a link to where to buy them through the race website on Run Sign Up. So if you need a training plan, feel free to grab one. So that's enough sort of sales and marketing. I want to talk the rest of my time about setting you guys up to have your best training cycle and then have a good race at the end of that. So I'm going to talk about 4 things to be successful training for really any ultra marathon. And then I'll talk about some specifics for Pilot Mountain to Hanging Rock based on the course profile and sort of how we structured things for people to be well prepared for racing well there. So training for an ultra marathon, if this is the first time you've ever stepped up to 50K or 50-mile distance, you may be concerned that you have to do a ton of mileage and a ton of long runs in order to handle the race distance. I would advise you to focus first and foremost on consistency week after week and not worry too much about hitting really, really big mileage, whether that's on a weekly basis or getting a really long run every single week. If you can be really consistent, running however many days per week works well for you throughout the next 20 weeks, you're going to be really well prepared and have a good base of fitness. And really, at the end of the day, aerobic base is what's going to set you up best for an ultra. So training with a lot of consistency is going to build that and compound all of that base training over time. And so that's kind of your first area of focus from a training perspective. You definitely want to have some long runs in your legs and some specific ones if possible. So, everybody's going to have some weeks where they may miss a long run or something might come up and you might have to shorten it or, whatever. If you are going to hit the majority of long runs on your training plan, particularly as you get into the last, let's say 2 months, 8 weeks or so of training, you're going to be in a really good spot. And I would advise you, if you get into a position where maybe you missed a long run or 2 and you feel like you have to make up for all that lost time, don't worry too much about that. Just continue to hit what's in front of you on the training plan and try to get most of those long runs done. And as you get toward the end of your training cycle, do your best to make those a little bit more course specific. And I'll talk about that on the next page. Okay, number 3, really, really important. Train your gut. If possible, work on running at similar times of the day as you're going to be racing. So that's going to be, doing your long runs in the mornings if possible. And also eating before and during those long runs. So find a breakfast option that works really well for you. It doesn't have to be anything overly specific. It can be anything from, toast and peanut butter to oatmeal to eggs to whatever you like and sits well. But definitely get in the practice of eating before you go out for long runs because you're going to want to do that and be used to it on race day. And then during your long runs throughout this training cycle, I would recommend fueling similarly to how you're going to do it on race day, just so that it's very, very second nature and you know exactly what works well for you. So the fueling ratios I would recommend for a 50K or a 50 miler would be somewhere on the order of a very, very minimum of about 200 calories per hour, but ideally somewhere more in the 350 to 400 calories per hour range. And that's going to be a combination of, you know, any quick carbohydrates you take in, any solid foods, anything you have mixed up in bottles that you're taking in fluid form. All of that added together will hopefully get you somewhere in that 200 to 400 calorie per hour window. And then you should have plenty of energy in order to do well in the race. So the key thing with gut training is just make sure that it's consistent, like everything else in your training. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and the better you're going to feel on race day. And then lastly, you know, maybe the most important thing is just staying healthy. So try not to train through, you know, injury issues as they pop up. If you need to divert to some cross training or adjust your mileage or something like that, that's more important than powering through and training with an injury. But also just make sure you're taking care of all those little things like good sleep hygiene, good nutrition, eating, you know, lots of quality foods and getting enough to eat so that your body is staying healthy. And, you know, just taking care of other things in general, like, you know, your core training and, you know, foam rolling and things like that. So if you hit these 4 areas and you kind of make those your sort of simple focus, you're going to do really well. Sorry, Priscilla, my kids are older. I do actually have a relatively standard bedtime. Okay, so a few things for Pilot Mountain to Hanging Rock. If you've looked at the course profile for both the 50K and the 50 miler, you're going to notice that there are some long climbs and long descents. And in order to have a good race, you definitely want to be prepared for what you're going to encounter in both. So all of these things on this page are essentially to build what I would call muscular fatigue resistance. So that's the ability to handle longer climbs when, you know, your climbing muscles, your quads, your glutes, etc., are going to be getting a little bit tired. And then also handling the longer descents and running to follow when you're going to have tired quads in particular. The best way to prepare for a race with a lot of elevation change is to make sure that you're strength training and not skipping leg day. So you don't need to be in the gym lifting super heavy, but it is really important to have a consistent strength training schedule where you're hitting all your major muscle groups a couple of times, if possible, per week. It could be a combination of a lot of body weight exercises. Most of the things on our training plans are body weight and maybe some like lightweight and banded stuff. The idea with strength training is that, you know, the best program to follow is the one that you're going to be consistent with. And so if that means that it's only body weight stuff that you do at home or right after runs or when you just have a spare 15 minutes, then that's the sort of things you should include. But I would say just make sure you don't skip that strength training entirely, because that's the big difference between staying healthy throughout your training cycle, but also just being ready for those sort of longer climbs and longer descents that you're going to see on this course. Okay, so another thing to just get ready for how you're going to feel later in the race is doing some long runs when you're tired. The way we do this in our training programs is to have some weekends where you have a long run both Saturday and Sunday. A lot of folks like to follow that sort of an approach when training for ultra marathons. It definitely doesn't need to be every week, but a few times throughout your training cycle, you probably want to do some back-to-back long runs just to make sure that you at least get a few of those like tired legs long run stimuli. It really, really helps to sort of feel out how you're going to respond to that, to see how much fueling you need to feel good, and to just sort of work through that fatigue so that your body learns to deal with it and to adapt to it. So, you know, structure a couple of those like back-to-back long runs, or if you can't make that work with your schedule, just, you know, kind of cram things together as much as you can, where you may have a few days of running leading up to your long runs when maybe you wouldn't normally do that, so that you'll be ready for the second half or last third of your race on race day. Another thing that goes along with that is the concept of recovery running. All of our training plans have like a shorter run following the long runs pretty much every week. So we don't like to do a full rest day right after a long run. The reason for that is, again, it's just working on that fatigue resistance side of your training and teaching your body to keep moving and sort of work through while it's a little bit fatigued. And then last, as much as you can, train for the elevation. So if you have access to some longer like climbs, particularly ones that are maybe on some trails, it would be really, really good to work those into your training. And if you live in a flatter area, I'll kind of talk about some strategies to train for the elevation in a couple slides. But the main thing is you don't want to go in having not done any elevation training. So whether it's using a treadmill or running up and down bridges if you live on the coastal areas, anything like that, you want to be ready for those ascents and for the descents. Okay, so that's the general stuff. So if I want to just summarize, train consistently, train your gut, and work on the specifics to get ready for the longer climbs and descents for this course, you're going to be in a pretty good spot. We got a couple of questions from people ahead of time, and then I've got a few that are sort of like general questions that we always get for these races that I thought would be valuable to include. In terms of specifics that people asked ahead of time, one was about what if it's hot and humid? So it can be. This race is in North Carolina, and it's a time of the year where sometimes it gets cool, especially up at higher elevations or early in the morning, but it could be warm and it could be humid. So how to prepare for that and how to handle it on race day. The easiest way to get ready for a hot race is to just make sure that you're training through the summer consistently. A lot of the adaptations that you need to be successful on race day will just come naturally by being out and training in warmer conditions. So if you live in a warm area, don't try to completely avoid it. You can embrace it. Just make sure that you adjust your approach accordingly on hot and humid days. The major way to do that is to just mainly do most of your running by effort rather than pace, and always starting slow, both in runs and on race day if needed. If you think about sort of like the way that heat and humidity impacts your body, it's really like a situation where you just want to make sure you don't get past your limit where you can start to have some performance declines or get into the danger zone. So the longer you can stay in sort of a safe effort, heart rate, and that sort of thing zone for you, the better. So starting slower, consuming fluids, consuming electrolytes really helps out with that. If it is a warm day, I highly recommend wearing white or other really, really light clothes if possible. Dark blues, blacks, dark grays, things like that will absorb a whole lot more radiation from the surrounding area and from the sun, and then they're going to trap that heat against your body. White colors or really light colors like white reflect a lot of that and keep you a lot cooler. And then if you have access to something like a sauna, whether it's at the Y or, if you're lucky enough to have a sauna in your house or anything like that, you can do some heat adaptation and acclimatization protocols for a couple of weeks before race day. A few sessions of 20 minutes a week for a couple of weeks in a sauna will actually give you pretty much all of the heat adaptation you need to not feel like it's as hot on race day. So that's a really, really super valuable tool, and there's a lot of good research supporting it. If you want to look into that, something that definitely has value. We got a question about the relay. So a relay team of 3, what should weekly training look like? So I would recommend relay teams of that size get to about 15 or 16 miles for a long run, unless that way you're going to have like all the mileage you need to cover your section of the race. Definitely make sure you work on some hill training and just be consistent otherwise. Run 3 or 4 times a week in total, and then just work on building up your long runs. and then you should be ready to perform well as a team. You can also look at where the relay exchanges are in the athlete guide, so you know like specifically how long your leg is going to be. For relays, I generally recommend people just have the entire race distance already in their legs before race day. Okay, other questions that are really common for Pilot Mountain to Hanging Rock. What are the best fuel sources to use during my runs? So as you're working on fueling, particularly if there's a first time that you've worked on gut training, you may be a little bit like confused about what to choose, what things are better than others, etc. What I always recommend as it relates to fueling is to just try a bunch of different things and find out what brands, what fuel sources, what particular like types of carbohydrates work well for your body. All carbs are going to be valuable during the race, and you just want to find stuff that works well for you, that your body accepts, and that you don't find gives you any GI issues. And so look at ingredient labels of various products and see what types of sugars work really well for you. You may find that particular carbohydrate sources like maltodextrin or fructose or something like that might actually lead to some GI discomfort for you. So if you see any of those on a particular package, try a different one, and that way you can find out what works well for you. I'd recommend training with both quick fuels like gels and things like that, but also practicing with some solid options so that you're ready to do that during the race. And you can look at the athlete guide. I know it's going to get changed, but a lot of the things are going to be similar from year to year. So there's some good ideas in there about what was at aid stations in previous years. And then you can try some of those things out so you know what works well. It might be PB&J sandwiches, it might be boiled potatoes, it might be plain bread with Nutella or whatever you find.
And Caleb, I've already fixed it. So everything is correct for the aid station chart and the food, and we're going to go over it briefly in just a minute.
Yeah, so pick some things off of those lists and practice with them. That way, when you roll up into an aid station at mile 40 and you're like, I'm sick of taking this like power gel every 30 minutes, you can grab some of the things there that sit well on your stomach. Okay, how can I train for hills if I live somewhere flat? Question we almost always get for these hilly races. I think the best hill training tool for an ultra that has long climbs and descents is a treadmill. And I will prescribe treadmill workouts for athletes that I have, even if they live in the mountains and they have access to long climbs that they could do outside. The reason a treadmill is so super valuable is you can just set it and let it kind of like be at that, grade, whether it's a 5% grade or it's a 15% grade, for long periods of time. So the treadmill is really, really useful. If you have one at home, excellent. If not, you get into a gym that has treadmills that go up to a pretty high incline. That's something super, super helpful. If you don't have access to a treadmill, or it's hard to get on one with some regularity for hill training, I would recommend seeking out things like bridges, stairs, parking garages, and just doing repeats. You do want to practice running both uphill and downhill, and you can do that again on a treadmill, or you can do that outside. But there's different muscles that are used for running uphill versus running downhill, and you want to train them both. So seek out what you can, and then just go uphill, go downhill as much as you can. Should I train with electrolytes? Yes. Especially in the summer when it gets hot, electrolytes are absolutely necessary to make sure that your body can actually retain fluids. Tailwind is always on course, and so that's a really good option to use. There's multiple flavors. You can look at the athlete guide for which ones will be where, but if you want something that's sort of all-in-one, carbs, electrolytes with your fluids, that's a really good option. Or if you have another product that works better for you and you want to bring that on race day and use it in your bottles or pack, then definitely use that. But I would recommend definitely training with electrolytes and just being in the habit of using electrolyte products throughout your summer training. And then, should I train with caffeine? We get this question quite a lot. There definitely is some benefits to using caffeine. It can help you feel like the effort is lower, but it doesn't work for everyone and it doesn't work all the time. So don't think of it as a magic bullet. If you are going to use any caffeine in your training, just make sure that you're not getting above like 100.
Oh. Looks like we might have lost connection for a moment with Caleb.
I was worried it was me, so I'm glad it wasn't. Let's give him 1 minute. He'll come back if he can. So we'll give him 1 minute. Anybody have any questions while we're at our pause? We're about to flip over to more Trivium race specific stuff in just a minute. So if you have anything, Delaney and I would be happy to answer it while we have a moment.
And this will be posted on Trivium's YouTube channel afterwards, and I'll also be emailing out the recording. So if you want to watch it again, just to go over things, that will be available for you guys.
I saw him come back for a second.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Sorry, I think I got booted somehow. I'm not sure exactly where I was, but I think I was pretty much at the end.
You're going over electrolytes, I believe.
All right, I'm going to flip to just my last page. Sorry about that. I don't know if my internet flagged or what. Okay. I'm back. Any other questions? I don't want to take up any more time since it's almost 7:30.
We have a very quiet bunch tonight.
I'm going to go on mute then, but I will be monitoring the chat. So if anybody has questions for me as a coach, feel free to drop them there and I will respond there. And if we have time at the end and there's more questions, we can hop back on and go through those. So I will quit sharing and let you take over, Priscilla.
All right, thank you so much. So, well, I thought I had everything pulled up here. The first thing I'm going to go over for those of you who have done our race before, we do have a change this year. We're doing like a slight course change. And so I'm just going to kind of hit the summary of what that is. I may be talking at you and you're like, what the hell is she talking about? And that's okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that means you've never seen this course before and it doesn't matter. It's going to be great. But once I'm kind of done hitting the summary, I'll tell you why we changed it. So what's new for Pilot Mountain this year? Our first course change was made to add a little bit of variety to the early portion of the course and also to spread out our 50K runners and our 50-mile runners more by having the 50-milers do more prior to meeting up with the 50K. So the 50-mile will get a chance to run on some of the Yadkin River Trail sections of Pilot Mountain, which we haven't got to do before, so we're super excited about that. Sorry, okay, let me take that back, because next he says, we've only used these trails twice in this race's history, not in the recent at all. The first year that they did this race, they used it, and then the year that they reversed it and did Hanging Rock to Pilot Mountain, it was used. It's an additional 3.5 miles of course before the 50-milers reach the 50K. So that's the first course change. All of this is reflected on Strava. The new course is correct once posted on Strava. I'm just telling you the differences for my seasoned Pilot Mountain people if they're here. The next course change will be the 50K athletes using Grassy Ridge Trail instead of Mountain Trail. This used to be standard practice, but with the trail shifts and changes to STA, we weren't able to use that trail for a little while. This allows the 50K to be unencumbered, not a word I would use. I'm totally reading Rich, the owner of the company's words here. Unencumbered by the 50 milers on course, and gives both races a chance to spread out again. Kind of just trying to help with the busyness of the race as we are definitely growing and selling out now. Another big change is the removal of Reuben Mountain Loop. This removes an additional location where the 50 mile and 50K go away from each other, removing an opportunity for athletes to go the wrong way. It also gives athletes, it gets you into Hanging Rock faster, so you're closer to us. Once you get to the Hanging Rock portion, you're tired, and we like to see you more and know that you're closer to us so that we know where you are. The next big change is the 50K athletes will have the opportunity to run around the lake at Hanging Rock. This change gets the 50K athletes to aid quicker. We were a little spread out once you got in Hanging Rock for the 50K aid. So really nice, we can get you an extra aid station in there. And also gives a view that we haven't had before. The last rule change, both races will have the opportunity to run the River Bluffs Trail, which Rich says is possibly one of the most beautiful portions of the course because it's by the Dan River. And that is you coming into the finish where the trail you'll be coming into the finish on. What these changes do, they get you to aid quicker. They're easier for parking of crew and makes crew access a lot easier if you're an athlete who's going to be crewed by others. So, any questions on course changes? You guys are really quiet. Okay, moving on. So I'm just going to hit the athlete guide very quickly. This is posted on our race website. It literally has every important thing you could want on it. It had one slide that didn't get changed, and I just changed it. So it is completely up to date. This tells you your start line addresses, finish line addresses. This is super important. If you haven't read this, there is no parking at the finish line. No ifs, ands, or buts. There is no parking at the finish line. We are closing the road down. We will not let you in or your crew in. Obviously, if there's a handicap situation, well, we can handle that. But we have a shuttle that will be running every 30 minutes from each place constantly, from 11 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., getting people to and from the government center, which is right down the road from the finish line. But because that people don't know how to follow directions, we can't allow parking down there. Race day schedule. Early packet pickup will be at the finish line on Friday from 3 to 6. Sorry, my pterodactyls are outside. My dogs are in here, and they're causing a ruckus, so can't win for losing at my house. On race morning, you can pick up your packet also at your start line. So 50 mile from 5 to 5:45, 50K, 6:15 to 7:30. You can pick up everything you need there. Start of the 50 milers at 6, started the 50Ks at 7:45. Again, this was me talking about no parking. You can read this again. This also, very important that you read on the not the athlete guide, but this is that. The aid station guide or our spectator guide about parking at aid stations. There are aid stations that people cannot park at. We will have somebody telling you cannot park here. It is important. And the reason it's important is because we can lose our permit to put on these races if people park there. It's not us trying to be butt heads, I promise. We're, again, making course changes so that you can have more people there for you. There are shuttles. I'm not going to go through shuttles. You looked through that when you registered. If you need a shuttle, you can still manage your registration and add it on. 50 Mile has a shuttle, 50K has 2 different shuttles, an early and a late. Weather, Caleb's already kind of gone over that. You can get anything here at this time of year. Actually, this year, 2025, we moved it a week earlier because for some reason a week later was hurricane week in North Carolina. And we had like at least 3 hurricanes in this race's history around that time. So we moved it a week earlier, which means it's a little bit warmer, definitely humid. So just be prepared for that. You're training all summer, you'll be well prepared for what weather will bring if you are anywhere near here. Course cutoffs. This is the part we don't like to talk about, but we have to. You have to be out of Hanging Rock at a certain time. These cutoffs are hard cutoffs that we will chase you down the trail because you are no longer safe. So please know the cutoffs. Know that if you unfortunately see us at that cutoff, that again, we're doing this out of love and we don't want to be the people doing it. For 50 milers, your average is just under 17 minute miles for that 14-hour limit. 50K, it's a 23:15 minute mile average to finish. So you will see the first cutoff at aid station 5, which is 1:16 p.m., aid station 8, which is 4:05 p.m., and aid station 11, which is 6:38 p.m. Both race courses close at 8 o'clock, and there is a sweeper kind of at least close to behind the last runner. If an athlete does not meet the designated cutoff, they will be given an option to be driven back by us or wait for your ride at whatever aid station you're at. Course markings. We pride ourselves in over marking a course. We mark every 0.07 mile with hanging tape if there's things to hang it on. If not, we put a flag in the ground, a surveyor flag. Every turn has a sign and 3 flags after it, or 3 surveyor flags if we can't hang it from somebody. Sorry, we're having a 3-way battle in my bedroom right now. We usually spray paint the road with this really pretty Pilot Mounts a Hanging Rock sign here on the road sections. This course does have road sections that connect different sections of the trail. We mark with surveyor. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I may have to abandon some of these people. I will be right back. Delaney, hold down the fort.
All right. Does anyone have any questions so far about the athlete guide? It is something that is on our website, so it's always available. I definitely recommend reading it.
Sorry about that. I didn't know we would start having a battle. We have trail signs, we have road signs. Anywhere that there are course splits, it says 50 mile this way, 50K that way, very clearly marked. We also have the link on Strava for the GPX file. If you have weird Strava issues, so do we. We can send you the GPX file as well if you want to have it on your watch. But that is not needed. You're going to be fine. We're going to so overmark the trail. It'll be good to go. There are also permanent trail signs on the Sourtown trails, which are the trails that connect Pilot to Hanging Rock. There are there are signs like this yellow sign, horse one side, hikers the other. You can take either way, but the horse side is usually muddier. Kind of nice to take the hiker's way. All right. I kind of go over this more in the second clinic, but I will kind of briefly touch it. For our aid stations, it is super important that when you get to an aid station, you check in. That means you have to use your voice and talk to the volunteer that has the sheet of paper there on the table. They mark you in to make sure that we know where you are, because if all of a sudden your family's looking for you and 164 is lost somewhere, we need to know where you were last. So it's super important, even if you don't want aid, that you just yell at the person at the table and make sure they acknowledge that 164 came in, 165, 164 is going out, and we know that. Water, tailwind, Huma gels at all aid stations. And then after that, always a salty, sweet, usually a savory as well. And as you get down the course, the food gets a little bulkier. And then as your stomachs are like, F you, I'm not eating anymore, we try to vary up that variety a little bit. So this is, I fixed, if you heard me in the beginning say that one of the slides was wrong, this was it. It's fixed now. So it is good to go. These aid stations should not change. Everything should be pretty set in stone now. Again, this is exactly what I would train for if I was you, or be prepared for to use. Some of this stuff you may, I don't need to train with Rice Krispie treat. I'm gonna eat the damn Rice Krispie treat when I get there, and it's gonna be the best thing I've ever had, and it will, I promise, and you'll thank me later. Eat the Rice Krispie treat. But this is kind of what we'll have. If it is hot, we will have ice towels, ice water, things like that. We don't post that because it's a little more subject to weather. We do have broth. I know it sounds disgusting on an 85-degree day, but if it's a pouring down rain 80-degree day, it may sound a little better. So we do prepare for that, making sure that there's broth, especially in some of the later aid stations when you may not want to eat anymore. Again, this is a really good place to look, to check in, and make sure you know what's going on. It tells you what, it will tell you what flavor of tailwind once we get closer to the race. Once we start packing everything is kind of when we put that in there, but we use raspberry, mandarin, naked. We had a random where we had to use the watermelon one recently, but it's usually just mandarin, raspberry, and naked. Raspberry does have caffeine, so if you don't do caffeine, I would suggest that you keep some individual tailwind packets in your stuff so that you have that. Drop bags, 50 milers and 50K athletes. Your drop bags are in two different places, and that is just because it can be a little hectic for us to help both at one spot. When you come into an aid station with a drop bag and you want your drop bag, all you have to do is tell your volunteer, hey, I'm 164, I want my drop bag. They should have some kind of system going on where they can get that drop bag for you. Again, Caleb and I in the second clinic will go through drop bags with you, the things that you should bring, most important things we think would be helpful for you. So I'm not gonna harp on the drop bag right now, but drop bags are kitchen sink size drop bags, 20 by 24 by 4. You can fit anything you want to in your drop bag. So train that way. Know that you're going to, at your aid station mileage, be able to change your whole life if you need to. It is a great place to be. You can find your full maps in there are 50K guides, 50-mile guides. I'm just in the generic in-between guide, but you can see all of that stuff here and click on your route. Relay teams, you have your own relay guide on the website. Go through your relay guide. It spells everything out for you, has a chart that helps you calculate things, when to go, where to be, all the good stuff. If you're on a relay team, check out the relay guide. It's super helpful. And the aid station chart will tell you where all of the relay exchange zones are and the parking situation there. Race Joy, we do use Race Joy for this race. Yep, you're not going to have service sometimes. Race Joy will not kill your battery if you cut off your Wi-Fi, but your family should be able to follow you most of the way. You will hit some dead spots, especially in the mountains. Sourtown, you're okay for the most part. But Race Joy, you won't be able to find the race or use the race until it gets closer to race day. So don't panic if you start emailing me in 2 months telling me where is Race Joy. I'm going to tell you it's not there because it's not. Race week, it will be. That was all I have for right now. Does anybody have any questions? Caleb, we're becoming pros at this. I feel like I didn't talk very much.
Yeah, we need Megan's the vamper, so
I know Megan makes the conversation. She does. Caleb and I shoot out the information. I want to talk about whatever you guys want from me, but I don't want to talk for no reason. I won't lie. So I talk to a 4-year-old and an 8-month-old that don't talk back all day long. Or they do talk back, but not in a way I want to talk about. So we won't sit in silence. I can't handle it.
Hey, Caleb, I got a question for you.
Go for it.
When I'm setting up like running plans, I'm like adding 10% weekly. When I go to do like a double back-to-back long run, and that puts me over like a 10%, is that something like I should be worried about, or just take it really chill and not worry about the 10% rule at all? Or how would you recommend going about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, that 10% rule, I don't think that's ever really a hard and fast rule. There's times when it makes a lot of sense to build slowly, and there's times where you actually want sort of a big stimulus that you're forcing your body to adapt to. And so the double long runs and some of the bigger long run weekends or long run weeks are those, it falls into the latter bucket. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. If, let's say, it makes your volume go up by 15, even 20% compared to the previous week, right? Because you're adding an extra 18 miles where you might have 5 in a regular week. What you definitely want to make sure you do is just recover appropriately. So anytime we have some of those bigger stimuli on our training plans, we always follow it up with a really light first half of the next week so that you have plenty of time for recovery. So I would, there's an old Bill Bowerman quote, there's no such thing as overtraining, only under recovery. I think that applies particularly when you're talking about big long runs and double long runs.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Yep.
I didn't specifically go over the questions and just hit me that were asked, so I'm going to hit those really quick. What brand of gels are used on the course? We only use Huma gels. So make sure that and it's variety of flavor, and we do not know that in advance. We merely just pick a bunch of variety flavors for you. I think, Caleb, I think you hit the rest. I think that was the only one that was really for me.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, perfect.
What are the odds that the course sells out?
That is the one I just saw. I would say 100%. We're already very well above where we were last year. If you give me 1 second, I'll tell you where we are. Sorry, 1,400 clicks to get there. Right now, we're already at 236. 236 participants registered. So this time last year, we were about 50 behind that. And we did sell out last year. So just, it is coming. I know, are you the person who said you like to get injured when it's close to race time?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so good at that.
Yeah, the likelihood of it selling out is high. I would say probably not until August, but the likelihood is high. And if it's I want to do the 50 mile, but I'll register for the 50K and pray that I'm healthy, we can switch you to the 50 miler very close to race day. That's not a problem. But your spot being gone is definitely questionable. All right, y'all. That's all I have scheduled to talk about. So if you don't have questions, you're free to go. Caleb and I'll stay on for a few minutes if you do have questions and you just don't want to talk in front of people, and that's okay too. But thank you all for being here. Sorry, there's one more thing I wanted to say. Preview run dates. I'm hopefully going to have those to you in the next 2 weeks. We should have a preview run in July, and we should have a preview run in August. And we meet in the Sourtown Mountain section, and usually one time we'll run towards Hanging Rock, and one time we'll run towards Pilot Mountain, which would be opposite of what you would do on race day, running towards Pilot Mountain. But we have a really cool place that we can meet in the middle, so we can see 2 different sections, of course.